Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Final Watch Veterans Podcast. My name is Brandon. I am the president and co founder of the Final Watch Veterans. This is a space where we have real conversations and no judgment's going to happen. There's no rank, no uniforms. And today's topic hits home for a lot of us, and that's transitioning from the military service or first responder life into the civilian world.
And this isn't just about changing jobs, it's about losing a lifestyle, an identity, and a sense of purpose that once defined you.
And we want to be clear, this transition affects men and women differently, but it affects everyone.
So, when you're in the military or working as a first responder, your job isn't just what you do, it's who you are. It's your title, your mission, your brotherhood, or your sisterhood.
Then one day, the structure disappears. No morning briefings, no clear chain of command. Civilians don't ask what unit you were in, they ask, so what do you do now?
And that question can feel like a gut punch because internally you're thinking, I used to matter. I used to save lives. I used to be a leader. So, with kind of that loss of identity, what parts of yourselves did you guys feel like you lost next day? I know we've touched on this in our other episode, kind of that going from 100 miles an hour to sliding off the tracks. But in your experience, what was kind of the most defining realization of like, oh, I don't really matter anymore?
So, from my experience during my 10 years in the Marines, I did a full decade, which is more than most. Majority of military service members, or even within the first responder community, is really about half that. Regardless of really how much time that you do, you're given that structure, you're given that training, how to be a leader, how to handle stressful environments, hostile environments, life threatening environments. And you're essentially hardwired to, overcome a lot of those adversities to get the mission done, regardless. We're always trained mission gear self in that order. And the mission always comes first. And getting out of the military, you realize that the mission has changed, but you're still trying to operate and do things the same way that you were while you were in. And unfortunately, with a lot of things that we do in the military don't exactly translate to how things work outside of it. A perfect example of that is we can be very standoffish, very vulgar. We can have very dark humor that doesn't necessarily blend in well in the civilian world. And the reality is we're always taught to adapt and overcome. My personal experience with adapting and overcoming, especially with the training, is how we're always trained to win and fight as a team. Outside of the military, you're on your own. Obviously, we're trained to take the initiative and get things done. However, we don't necessarily have that battle buddy or that platoon sergeant to confide in to essentially make sure that our focus is what's going to be beneficial for the certain job or task that you're trying to accomplish outside the military. But yeah, once you transition out, the initial thought process is I'm going to be successful no matter what. I have all this training, all this background in leadership, all these job skills that are essential in any job function. But the hard part is finding that employment that actually understands how we communicate, because it can really feel like a language barrier. It can really feel like, um, we are a jigsaw piece that doesn't necessarily fit in most places.
So it's like the job becomes your
Exactly, and for a lot of civilians, kind of like what you said, Mark, they don't ask, what unit were you with, or it's like, what are you doing now? And to be honest, a lot of us don't quite know how to answer that question, because we're having to basically rediscover who we are outside of the military when for so many years, that's who we we are. So it's really a journey of self-discovery all over again. And for most of us, it can be very difficult.
So do you think that there's a silence after leaving? Like, do you feel the silence?
Yeah, you could definitely, it kind of goes into, feeling that isolation and silence, from going from that 100 miles an hour to that go to like nothing. You definitely feel that silence. You feel alone. And honestly, that's typically where a lot of veterans don't handle that well, or even in the first responder community don't handle that well. And I think it's part of the cause that leads to, unfortunately, the 22 a day, or, that number is really greater than that. But sadly, it's a hard reality that we all face that essentially makes us feel like we're, not really worth anything anymore outside of the uniform.
And I think, like, in my personal experience, I felt that very strongly because I went from being a sergeant in Marines, being in charge of 12 Marines, signing for hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of gear, and camera equipment and organizing, sending someone here and sending, this great balancing act of being a section chief to the next day I was just Leah. And with that, I had to completely figure out who I was because I joined when I was 19 years old. I had no idea who I was. I developed this persona of who I thought I should be, good Marine, essentially good person, but wrapped up into my rank. Like I am sergeant, I am not Leah. And I went from being in the second busiest shop of my MOS in the whole entire Marine Corps to being a stay-at-home mom, and that was really, really difficult for me. And so I think that moment of being in the military wasn't what I did, it was who I was. It was the most formative, and I think a lot of people feel like this. They take you during the most formative moments of your entire life. The person that you're gonna be tomorrow is being defined at 18, 19, 20 years old, and you're suddenly thrust out of this safety net because, regardless of how bad you are with your money, every 1st and 15th that check's coming in. You'll always have a place to stay. You'll always have food in your stomach no matter what, as long as you show up at the right place and the right time in the right uniform, you're going to be taken care of. And all of a sudden now you're responsible for the livelihood of others with absolutely zero safety net. So that was such a hard transition for me personally.
So do you feel that life in the military, or while you served, do you feel that that was your regular life? Was it like slower pace, and then when you got into civilian, did you feel like the civilian life was more like a fake life or pointless, to where you just didn't understand once you got out?
Yeah, I think so. I think it just, or maybe even sometimes opposite, like sometimes my experience prior in the military, that feels like it was its own fever dream, and then this life feels very, it just always feels like there's nothing new, like nothing's new. Every day I'm doing the same thing. Every day I wake up, I have to get my kids to school. I come home, I have to do my household stuff. And it's just like there was this monotony of like I was waking up to live the same day over and over and over again. And I think something that's really important to somebody that was in the military, you're constantly striving to be better. You're, oh, you shot sharpshooter, next time you're going to shoot expert. You're going to go attend extra classes, or you're going to go to extra courses at your schoolhouse to update your job skills. You're doing these kinds of things that set you above and beyond your peers, but now you have no peers to be in competition with. You're in competition with yourself. You're just living the same kind of reality over and over again. And that's, for a longest time, that's how it felt for me because I got out. I had 3 kids, 3 and under. And that was, I was used to, my kids went to the babysitter. I went to work. My husband at the time would go to work. We would juggle all of this stuff. We'd all come home at the end of the day. And all of a sudden, I am 22 toddlers and a baby. And it was such a weird, like I enjoyed being a mom. I enjoyed being a mother, but it was such a weird, like immediate transition from like, oh, I'm just your snack deliverer.
So you say that you would miss the chaos, but you don't want to admit that you miss it.
No, I do miss the chaos because I think we're really good at operating kind of in that kind of operational chaos. We're constantly operating on like yellow or orange consistently. Something's coming up. They're giving you like 5 days worth of work and telling you to do it in by end of day today. But it's not chaos. For me, Marine Corps life was chaos with a purpose. And as a mother, it's chaos with zero logic, rhyme, or reason.
What about you, Brendan?
Yeah, I was just gonna piggyback off of that, especially with, like Leah, you took the words out of my mouth about how we, basically do things in the yellow or the orange all the time and we thrive on the chaos. And then outside of the military, like honestly, going from that chaos to kind of nothing, like I kind of, not to be a science fiction nerd, it's almost like being put into the matrix, where it's just the same monotonous, this is what you do, this is who you were, but now you are, Joe Schmo, just regular 9 to 5er, now stay at home mom or stay at home parent, or like in my situation, I had to quit working due to the health problems that I, incurred from my time in service. And, it, I'll just be honest, it sucks. And a lot of times we tend to add on to that by self sabotaging ourselves. And what do I mean by that? A lot of us become alcoholics. A lot of us get involved with drugs and different vices. A lot of us tend to, start a fight just to keep things interesting in the house. And we, a lot of times, unknowingly do this to ourselves, really just due to the fact that we're still, I hate to say programmed or hardwired to act and do things a certain way due to our time in the service. Now, some people have an easier time transitioning, but personally, I like to say that I truly believe that the transition never truly ends. I think we're in a constant state of change. We're in a constant state of trying to grow. And like, for me personally, now that I'm not working, I'm essentially trying to discover and learn new things because I want to keep my mind active and I want to keep that momentum of, progression, whether it's in, computer technology or gaming or building models with my kids, learning to be more analytic. We're essentially engineered to constantly seek that next level, to make it to the end. But the reality is, there really is no end. It's just a constant state of leveling up. And for a lot of us, when we feel like we can't do that, we tend to level up in other ways by, okay, instead of having 2 shots, it's going to be 3 shots tonight, or so forth, just to kind of put it in the perspective of, that realm of how our minds tend to work. It could be overall just difficult for us to accept our circumstances that we're, essentially the hand that we're dealt and how we decide to play it. And a lot of times we can end up uh, doubling down when we shouldn't. It's kind of that no one to hold them, no one to fold them. Just throwing a lot of different analogies out there, but a lot of them, really correlate to the things that we go through as veterans and first responders. Hey, how's it going, everybody? It's Brandon here, the president of the Final Watch Veterans Foundation. Just want to take a quick moment and show some appreciation for all of our new followers, as well as people that have been following us since the beginning of 2026. As a token of our appreciation, we're going to be doing a giveaway. With the giveaway, there's going to be 3 winners, guys. And on top of it, you're also going to get some MREs with these. For a 3rd place winner, show support in blue. We got this nice and simple front and back plate carrier. This should be for the 3rd place winner. Our 2nd place winner is going to be another tactical vest. This one's a little bit nicer by Bolo Defense with nice, easy, simple, quick release putting on the plate carrier. This will be the 2nd place winner by Bolo Defense. And then 3rd place winner, or 1st place, I apologize. It's going to be this tactical vest here. So if these interest you, very simple way to get entered, guys. All you have to do is give us a follow and you're going to be automatically entered to win. Simple as that. Make sure you're following us on TikTok. Make sure you're following us on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook. And that's going to be the criteria. You have to follow us on all of our platforms. If you follow us on all our platforms, that's going to get you an automatic entry. You got to like the video, you got to share it, and you have to follow. Okay. Those 3 wickets. And then essentially we're going to run this until, let's say, March 1st. We're going to run this till March 1st. So for everybody that's been following us, you're already going to get automatically entered. And all the new followers as well, you're automatically going to get entered. All the shipping costs will be paid by us. This will be a no cost entry for the giveaway. And of course, we wouldn't be here without y'all. So we love and appreciate each and every single one of you. Big things are coming for the Final Watch Veterans Foundation. Stay tuned. Semper Fidelis, and we have the watch.
Well, as a first responder, I mean, you have the uniform, so you get all the respect. You get people that want to be around you just because you have that uniform on. So that uniform became an identity. Wearing it, putting on that badge, putting on all the gear kind of makes you feel like a superhero. But then the silence after leaving, there's no radio, there's no adrenaline, there's no brotherhood. All that is left behind. And then in a regular life, you get out into the real world, you still hear that radio in your head. You still hear those calls. You see certain things that you don't see as a civilian. I don't know how to explain it. Just being behind the uniform and then being out of the uniform, you still see what you saw when you were trained, and it's just repetitive. I miss the chaos. I hate to admit it, but I do miss it. When I got out, I went into sales, and going into sales was just crazy. I went from regular sales to sales manager within a 3-month period just because I knew structure. And then I can tell you that it's not that I miss the job. I miss who I was when I wore the uniform. And that's when I decided to go into security because, for one, I can still do certain things that I was doing as a first responder, and I serve my community. So I had to put that uniform back on one way or another.
What caught you off guard the most emotionally, kind of with that transition, Mark?
Seeing things that I couldn't put my hands on. Going to a store, seeing somebody stealing something, I felt like going over there and throwing them on the ground and putting them in handcuffs, but I couldn't do it because I'm already out of it. Or just going to the park and seeing a parent mistreat their kid. Being that behind the uniform, I could protect them more than I could as a parent, or just somebody watching somebody mistreat their kid, doing something they're not supposed to, or that it really hurt emotionally to that type of life. I mean, you can't just go up to somebody and tell them, hey, quit talking to your kid that way, and you can't be authority because they're going to see you in plain clothes and they're going to just be like, wave you off. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, you go from rigid schedules and clear expectations to workplaces where standards are flexible. That can be frustrating.
And that frustration often turns inward. You start asking questions like, what's wrong with me? When really you're just wired for a different system. I think I've experienced this in a way that, that's different than the both of you, because have gone back out into the workforce after transitioning out of first responder life, military life. I have not. I got out of the Marine Corps. I immediately started staying home. I've told myself many, many, many different times that I'm going to start college this semester. I'm going to start college this semester. And then it was like, oh, I'm not, because, the time I got out of the Marine Corps, I was pregnant with my third child. By the time I was going to give birth, it was going to be right in the middle of finals week. There was no way I was going to be able to start college. And then I had a newborn, and then I had 3 kids, 3 and under. And so I was waiting for them to start school, and now they've started school, and now I'm going through the middle of a divorce proceedings, and I can't focus on school now because of that. And so it feels like there's this kind of force in my life that is just kind of keeping me from pursuing higher, better things. And a lot of the times I'm like, what is wrong with me? There are people, single moms, that get their doctorates, they go to law, put themselves through law school, nursing school all the time and work really hard. Like, why am I unable to even fathom doing this? Like, what is wrong with me? Why am I making all these excuses? But it's like, without any outside structure, how am I going to force myself to do this? Because I am so used to you better show up to work or you're going to go to jail. You better put on your fancy outfit that everybody else is wearing, or you're going to get in trouble. We're going to take away your rank. We're going to take away your pay, And so for me, I think the loss of structure has completely screwed over the way that I function as an adult?
So, when it comes to the structure that we were given and trying to apply it in a regular job outside the military, I want to say over 90% of jobs out there don't really have structure. It's more like guidelines and actual rules. I think of Barbosa from Pirates of the Caribbean when it comes to a lot of these employers out there. Obviously, depending on the industry, obviously, if you work in construction to, OSHA and all the other stuff that goes along with that, DOT, a lot of those rules and regulations are in place for a reason, for safety above everything else. But as far as like company structure and the way they do things with leadership, the biggest frustrations that I would have is, it's very similar to dealing with butter bar lieutenants. Congratulations, you did 4 years in college. That automatically makes you better than me. I've been here for over 5 years running the shit. I know what's going on. But to have somebody new come in that has no experience, but he has a degree, tell me what to do, can be very frustrating. I mean, and it's like that in the military as well. But it's like you go and work for a civilian employer or, even just applying for a job. Like I myself, I have the credits for an associate's, but my biggest regret was never taking advantage and getting my degree while I was in. But most employers, and this is kind of a hard reality, not just for the veteran community, but just, for everybody, as Americans in the work industry, most employers will take somebody with a 4-year degree in a leadership role over somebody who does not, even though the person that may not have the degree might have 10 plus years experience or even 20 plus years experience in leadership. They'll take the 20 some odd year old kid with a degree over somebody with the experience. Why is that? Number one, that kid that has that degree, 9 times out of 10 is going to have that student loan debt, which means they're going to be easier to control with their salary. They're also going to be easier to keep at the job because they know they have a debt that they need to pay off versus somebody who actually knows their worth, knows what they're doing, has the experience, knows how to negotiate salary, and is a veteran on top of it. That's why I was kind of saying it's a double-edged sword when it comes to, a lot of these companies out there that love to say, oh, we love veterans and blah, blah, blah. We want you and everything else. But for the veterans' preference, honestly, in my personal experience, it's been a lot of tax grabs. A lot of companies love to hire veterans solely for the tax break. I think the last time I checked, it was like a $9,000 tax break that the company gets for hiring one veteran. $9,000 per. So, kind of getting back to the structure aspect of it, most companies aren't really ran that way. From my personal experience, it's always been a lot of favoritism within the workplace, a lot of brown nosing with the bosses to get favors or, when you show up to work and so doesn't show up, you end up having to cover down on their tasks. And, as far as not showing up to work in the civilian world, it's not like how it is in the military compared to like the you get sick days, you get vacation days, and a normal job. But, it's like, as far as like the accountability aspect of it, it's not as strict compared to how it is in the military. It's like, oh, well, they have sick days. So guess what? Now you got to do their job. And it's like, motherfucker, you end up getting twice the workload. Um, but yeah, I mean, that's really just been my experience. Leah, you got anything you want to add on that?
No, I don't really have anything on this topic, but Mark, is there a specific situation that caught you off guard transferring from kind of a high chaos job to something that is a little bit lower stress?
Yeah. I would say loss of structure and that routine of getting up every day, putting on the badge, getting up every day, putting on the belt, getting up every day and putting on that uniform and, looking forward to protecting and serving the community. Going from high stake decisions to that office space drama, civilians complaining about things that you didn't think really mattered, things that felt too small, and feeling that you don't belong in your own space. It's just trying to adapt to a different lifestyle that you were so person that I can talk to. So I hold things back. I don't talk to anyone. I don't have a huge circle of friends. I have a small circle of friends. I can count my friends on my hand. So just transitioning from first responder life to civilian life. It's from the time that I was brought up, it's like, they always taught you, suck it up, move on. That was it.
So, for people out there, if you're listening and if this sounds and feels familiar, just remember you're not broken, okay?
So in part 2, we're definitely going to take a deeper dive into the mental toll, the anger, hypervigilance, emotional numbness, and how it impacts the people around us.
We are going to come back with a part 2, so make sure you stay tuned. We're going to take a slightly little break, and make sure you stay tuned for part 2. And if you haven't followed us yet, make sure you follow us on TikTok. Make sure you follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and we have our YouTube that's now active as well. All the links are going to be in our bio. Each one of us have the link in the bio along with our foundation page. You can find us easily on TikTok. All you have to do is search for Final Watch Veterans Foundation, and it'll pop up. You can follow us on there. Make sure you're following us on all platforms because we are going to have a giveaway. So make sure that you look out for that promo. We appreciate you watching. Make sure you follow us here on Spotify for our podcast, and we appreciate you. We love you.